All right, welcome everybody to Notes to Fret. If this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. And this channel is focused on the guitar player and turning theory into riffs. What we are looking at is really taking everything that guitar players, myself included, have notoriously struggled with and putting it into language that makes perfect sense for guitar players. If you are returning to the channel, welcome back. And here we are going to continue on into part 2 of our Circle of Fifths conversation. So with that being said, we looked at the first video was really an introduction to the Circle of Fifths. Where we left off was evaluating the chords that were in each key that we could quickly look at within the Circle of Fifths. And so that's where we're going to start this video. So here, taking a look at this, we're looking at the C major key, and the chords in the C major key are C major, G major, F major, D minor, A minor, E minor, and I'm leaving out the B diminished for the time being. If you're not familiar with what we're looking at here, please go back and watch the first video. But we're going to start here by looking at the structure of each one of these keys more in depth. Now we know the chords, and that's all well and good, but really what starts to make up the unique sound signatures for each one of these keys. So for example, when we're first looking at the C major key, the very first chord is our C major key. The next chord is going to be our D minor, and then that's going to be followed by the E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and then B diminished. And we haven't really talked about diminished chords yet. But here, as we are looking to say this is the C major key, and we know that we have C major, G major, F major, D minor, A minor, E minor. Well, if we kind of break that down a little bit further, our D minor is our second chord, our E minor is our third chord, and our A minor is our sixth chord. And what this means is in every major key, no matter what major key it is, the second, third, and sixth chord are always going to be minor. Correspondingly, that also means that the first, the fourth, and the fifth chords of any major key are always going to be major, just the way it works out. There are times when this, gets broken and everything else, and that's fine. Know the rules and then you know where to break them. But every major key that you come across, the second chord, the third chord, and the sixth chord are going to be minor. The first chord, the fourth chord, and the fifth chord are going to be major, and the seventh chord is going to be diminished. Now, as we spoke about in the previous video, each one of our major keys has a corresponding minor key. We call it the relative minor. And we spoke about this previously, and the corresponding or the relative minor to C major is A minor. And if we take a look at this really quick, we'll see that the A minor is our sixth chord in the major key. And if we remember from the previous video, we discussed that a key versus scale, a key has a tonal center, meaning that in C major, the tonal center, you want to keep bringing the sound, if you will, back to a C major. But sometimes we want to have a minor feel to the song, right? Majors are kind of major keys are kind of happy and uplifting. Minor keys are notoriously kind of sad or down. Now, you can do stuff with this, but that's a high level generalization. So maybe you want to have that minor kind of progression in your song. So you'd rather have A minor as your tonal center. In order to do that, it's very straightforward. We're just going to put A as the primary chord, and then we're going to progress through, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. But we're going to have A kind of as our primary one rather than C as our primary chord. And all we literally do is we just kind of move the progression directly from A as opposed to C. That's it. Right? So now we have our A minor, but we want to say our A it's not our sixth chord anymore. A really is our first. And B, even though it's diminished, regardless, it's no longer our seventh, it's now our second. And C is no longer our first, it's really our third. So we're just going to change the numbering around a little bit when we start talking about minor. And that's kind of our, those are chords in our minor key. However, we still have the A, the D, and the E. They're still minor. That hasn't changed. But now instead of the second, third, and sixth being minor, in a minor key, the first, the fourth, and the fifth key, or the first, the first, the fourth, and the fifth chord are always going to be minor. Right? And we can see that here, the A, the D, and the E are always minor. In a major chord, that means our 2, 3, and 6 chords are minor. And in a minor key, that means our first, our fourth, and our fifth chords are minor. Correspondingly, in a major key, our first, our fourth, and our fifth chords are major. However, in a minor key, our third, our sixth, and our seventh chords are going to be major. I'm saying you were still looking at the circle of fifths. Nothing's changed, right? We still have C major, G major, F major, D minor, A minor, E minor. When we look over to the chord structure on the right, we still see that the D, E, and A are minor, and that the C, G, and F are major, right? It's very easy to kind of say the 2, 3, and 6 are minor in a C major key, and that the chords 1, 4, and 5 are minor in a minor key. That's it, right? And so you'll often hear musicians talking, a 1, 4, 3 progression or a 1, 5, 4 progression in a minor key. Right? This is where it comes from. This is exactly what they're looking at when they start talking about chord progressions. This is it. So again, another very powerful way of looking at the circle of fifths. Now again, it's easy to look at that from a C major. You might think that it works out unique for the C major key, but what happens when we hit more complicated keys? We'll just take E flat major. Same exact thing, right? We have the E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, right? I mean, we're just progressing through the chords of the key. And once we get to the seventh, we have our diminished, right? We have a D, which we haven't spoken about yet. But here again, we know that the F, C, and G are minor. And the A flat, E flat, and B flat are major. So again, we have our 2, our 3, and our 6, and our 1, 4, and 5, right? So 2, 3, and 6, once again, are minor. And our 1, 4, and 5, once again, are major. Correspondingly, right, we're going to start with our relative minor. In this case is a C. And we're just gonna again progress through the notes, right? C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And we're just using the flats as they correspond inside in the circle of fifths. So once again, we're looking at this, only now we're in C minor. So now we're going to say the 1, the 4, and the 5 are minor, and the 3, the 6, and the 7 are major. Same exact thing, right? And it will work out no matter which key you pull from the circle of fifths, it will always follow this progression. In a major key, the 1, the 4, and the 5 are major. The 2, the 3, and the 6 are minor. The 7th is diminished. And in a minor key, the 1, the 4, and the 5 are minor chords. The 3, the 6, and the 7 are major chords. And the second chord is diminished. That's it. So again, doesn't matter which one you look at, it's always going to fall into that pattern. Now, as we start to look at the chords and the progressions, we see these flats and these sharps kind of come in, and we know that C major has no sharps and has no flats. But in between a C major having no sharps and no flats and a C sharp major having all sharps and a C flat major having all flats, we have in between, right? So some of the keys have one sharp or two sharps or three sharps. Other keys have one flat, two flats, three flats, so on and so forth, right? And so there's in between. So within the circle of fifths, and again, I'm going to go down the right side clockwise first, and we're going to see where the sharps come from. And as we move into the G major key, we get our first sharp, and it's F. And I'm just printing out the phrase that I use to remember the order of the sharps. And this phrase will be complete by the time we get down to the 6 o'clock position into the F sharp. But the first in the G major, we have F, right? And I just fancy. Next, we move into D major, and we have our next sharp, which is C. And I just say fancy cats. I'm a dog person, but here we are, right? We got cats. Now, moving down into the A major, we have our third sharp, go, G, right? Again, so I know that it's F, C, and G are the sequence. Remember, I still have, girls dance and every boy fights. So now I'm just going with fancy cats go. Where do they go? What do they do? Into E major, I say fancy cats go down. Now, when they go down, they're going to do something else, and, right? And so now in B major, I've got my my five sharps, right? F, C, G, D, and A. How am I remembering that? Fancy cats go down, and what do they do when they go down? I say they eat. And if you've ever given a cat some fancy food in a bowl, they go down and eat that, like the kings that they think they are. So I just say fancy cats go down and eat. And that's how I remember the acronym for the order of the sharps, right? So G has one sharp, it's the F. D major has two sharps, it's the F and the C. A major, it has three sharps, the F, the C, and the G, so on and so forth, right? Now, this only, up to where we are right now in the F sharp major, which has six sharps, this is where the circle of fifths kind of stops. It doesn't typically show you C sharp major. If it did, C sharp major is the only key that has a B sharp. It's the only key that has a B sharp in it is C sharp. C sharp major is the only key that has B sharp in it. So if you want to kind of keep that, keep that a little bit more aligned, fancy cats go down and eat big, right? And that's just the way that I remember it. That covers all seven sharps within the musical spectrum. So this is how I remember which keys have sharps associated with them. Now, correspondingly, we have to take a look back at the flats as well. And so coming into the counterclockwise direction, we have the F major, which has a single flat, which is B. And I'm going right back to Beads Galore from Woodstock. Now, when I look at B flat major, it's got two flats associated with it, the B flat and the E flat. Moving down into the E flat major, it's got the B, the E, and the B flat, E flat, A flat. And correspondingly, A flat major has the D flat associated with it, and that's where I get beads. Now we come into the D flat major, and the D flat major has a G flat associated with it as well. So I'm right back at Beads Galore, right? We spoke about this earlier. At Woodstock, people were wearing, they freaking beads galore sort of thing. Now, there's a couple of more keys here that we need to account for, specifically the G flat major, and that is going to have the C flat associated with it. So I kind of look at it, beads galore at the concert, right? Woodstock is a concert. But once again, as we look at the B, the E, the A, D, G, and C, all the flats that are contained within the G flat major, there's only 6 of them here, right? And so the one flat that we're missing is the F flat. And you could kind of call Woodstock a concert or a festival, kind of take your pick. But the F flat, the only key that has an F flat in it is the C flat major. And again, you don't see the C sharps and the C flats typically at the 6 o'clock in the circle of fifths. So it's just one of those things where, right, we spoke about earlier with the B sharp only being in the C sharp key and the F flat only being in the C flat key. And that's where it comes into all 7 notes. In the C sharp, all 7 are sharp. In the C flat, all 7 are flat. And in the just regular C major, there's no flats and no sharps, right? So the B sharp and the F flat are directly correlated to the C sharp key and the C flat key, right? So again, I'm showing them here for a little bit of completeness. Now, with all that being said, there's a very convenient way to look at music when we kind of use this circle of fifths to our advantage. And one of the things, and we're not reading music here, even though you see this music clef thing over here, we're not going to start reading music yet. All I'm going to show you is a pattern that you could look at very, very quickly and immediately know which key the music is written in. That's it. We're not reading music here. I'm just simply going to show you a pattern. Now here, if there are no sharps and no flats on the clef, we know that we're in C major. Now we're either in C major or A minor. And you may ask, how do you know that? Well, typically either the first note or the first chord will identify what key it is in. So if it's in C major, typically the first note of the first chord is going to be C major. If it's in A minor, typically the first note or the first chord is going to be A minor. Or the first note would be A. But there's little bit of a caveat to that. Sometimes the first note or chord may not be C major or A minor, but typically in the first bar, the tonal center will be either C major or A minor. What does that mean? You might see one F chord, right? You might see an F major, followed by a C major, followed by an E minor, followed by another C major. And maybe that happens in the first bar. And so C major is more prominent. It happens twice, whereas the F and the E only happen once. And that's another indicator. So typically in the first bar, if you pay attention and you're kind of looking, you'll see whether or not it's the major or the minor. But regardless of all of that, the priority that we need to look at here is that there's no sharps and no flats. So therefore, right off the bat, we know we're either in C major or A minor. We just know that, right? Which one we would have to analyze. But at least we know that right off the bat. Now let's say that there's one sharp. Well, if there's one sharp, we know we're either in G major or E minor. Again, we're not reading music here or doing anything else, but at least we know that. One sharp, we can guarantee ourselves pretty much that we're in G major or E minor. And if there's 2 sharps, we can say we're in D major or B minor. Same thing. If there's 3 sharps, we know we're in either A major or F sharp minor. If there's 4 sharps, we know we're in E major or C sharp minor. Same thing, right? So now we have 5, and now we're in the B major, G sharp minor. And if there's, if there's 6 of them, we got the F sharp major, D sharp major. And again, the opposing side of C major, if everything is sharp, if we have 7 sharps, we know for a fact we're in C sharp major, right? We already spoke about this. Hopefully at this point you're tired of hearing me say that if everything is a sharp, it's C sharp major. But we need to pay attention to the flats as well, not just the sharps. So with that being said, what happens when we have a single flat? Well, we know we're in either F major or D minor. And if we have two flats, we know we're in B flat major or G minor. Same thing. If we have three flats, we're either in E flat major or C minor. Four flats, we're either in A flat major or F minor. Right, and we just keep moving on, right? So now with five, or D flat major or B flat minor. If we have six, G flat major or E flat minor. And once again, if all seven of them are flat, and again, I'm hoping that you're tired of listening to me say this, if everything is flat, we know that we're in C flat major, right? So again, we're not reading music here. Don't worry about anything other than just looking at that pattern, right? One flat, two flats, one sharp, two flat, two sharps, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can very quickly get a indication of what key you're in, and therefore, if you remember the, your one, your threes, your fives, things along those lines, and you know which ones are minor and major, you're kind of off to the races right off the bat to be able to play almost any piece of music you want. And typically, once you see the musical clef, like you see it here, directly underneath are the tabs, which is great, right? So that's how most guitar players start off playing music, is we read tabs. But at least this way you kind of start to get a feel for being able to quickly look at a piece of music very, very easily without having to read music at all. And you can tell virtually what key it's in, right? And so, again, it's one of those things that is a good pattern to remember and recognize, and it's right here for us, staring us in the face from the circle of fifths. So again, very powerful tool. But I think I'm going to stop there. And again, there's quite a bit to digest from this video. So if you need any additional information on this, drop me a line in the comments. Let me know what I can clarify for you. But with that said, I am going to go ahead and close the video out for this section here. And in the third video, we're going to get into some of the finer grained details on what some of the nuances are, where we do start talking about this 6 o'clock position a little bit more, and really kind of breaking down how everything's related a little bit more stringent. But anyways, with that being said, close the video out. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care, everybody.